In this video, you'll learn how to set up and configure a network-attached storage device for file sharing on your network. I'll also show you how to properly set up and configure a DLNA media server. So before we jump into this, let's talk about these things for just a moment. So what is a NAS? Well, NAS stands for Network Attached Storage, and basically it's a file server located centrally on your network that will allow you to access files and folders from anywhere within your LAN. Historically, you would have a file server on your network, say a desktop computer, and you would leave that computer on 24/7 to serve files anywhere in your LAN. Well, at 200 or 300 watts for a full tower computer, that's not very energy efficient. So in recent years, some companies have been popping up, such as Synology, QNAP, Thecus, Zyxel, Buffalo, and now Asus Store, have begun creating network-attached storage appliances. They call them NAS devices, and they're basically dedicated NAS units. And what these do is the same thing. They serve files, although these devices obviously have some added features. Well, those added features come with an added cost and a little bit more setup. Using Tomato and basically a external hard drive or maybe a flash drive, providing that your router comes equipped with a USB plug, you can achieve virtually the same thing in terms of file server. Which leads me to the next thing, which is DLNA. So let's talk about that. DLNA stands for Digital Living Network Alliance, and basically what this does, it operates on the UPnP protocol, Universal Plug and Play. Think of the word universal. This means that you can take files from, basically you can stream files to any device anywhere on your network, wirelessly or wired. And that's what we're going to be setting up over the next few minutes. So let's go ahead and get started. Before we get started mounting the drive, enable file sharing, and configuring the DLNA media server, there's just a couple of things that I wanted to cover so that you could see the effects of what it is that we do. If you open up the Windows Explorer and you go to Network, you'll notice that there are no other devices being shown in my network. And obviously that's because the router does not have file sharing enabled. The other thing that I wanted to point out was if we click on Computer, we've got two drives here, an external drive and a flash drive. On the external drive, I'm going to right click and choose Properties. And you'll notice that this is an NTFS file system. And NTFS has, or actually recognizes uppercase and lowercase file names. I'm going to close that out and I'll show you in comparison. See how this one has all uppercase? If I right click that and choose Properties, this is a FAT32 file system. And watch what happens when I try to change this to a lowercase name. I actually want to rename this to share so that when I plug it into the router later, it'll just be easier for me to enter. And I'll try to put it in as a lowercase. You see that? It didn't change it to lowercase letters. So if you're dealing with a FAT drive instead of an NTFS drive, you want to make sure later that when you enter in the file path for the DLNA media server that your characters are uppercase and lowercase specific, because Linux is uppercase and lowercase sensitive. So I just wanted to point that out. Okay, now what we're going to do is enable, what we're going to do is log into our router and navigate to USB and NAS. The core USB support, and when you do that, by default, the USB storage support and many other options here will be automatically selected, including the automatically mount all partitions in subdirectories mount, and that will be important in a moment. The ext2 and 3 are Linux file systems. NTFS was actually designed by Windows, but it's also used by Mac OS X, and it can be used by Linux with special drivers. And the FAT file system is fairly universal. You can use it about anywhere. It's an older file system. Let me scroll down here. You'll You'll also notice right here where it says some of the changes will take effect only after restart. So if you do experience any problems connecting your USB, it may be that you need to reboot your router or unplug the USB and plug it back in. Okay, what I'm going to do is click Save. Okay, as you can see, it has recognized one drive, and that's because the auto mount is selected. And later, when I disconnect the drive from the computer and plug it into the back of the router, it should automatically mount that drive. Okay, so while we're right here, let's go over here to File Sharing in the menu. And we want to enable file sharing. And we're going to choose Yes, No Authentication Required. Optionally, you can use Yes, Authentication Required and enter in a password of some sort. And that would be your username. You can change that, but we're not going to use that. We're going to use No Authentication. And also I wanted to point out, you want to make sure that your workgroup name is correct. And if you're not sure what that is, you can go to Start, right-click on Computer, and choose Properties. And your workgroup name is right there. The client code page is fairly important. That's something that you want to be sure to select. It should be, in my case, United States and Canada. And the master browser, you only want one master browser on your network. But in order for Samba file sharing to work, we need to enable and make sure that that's enabled. You want to make sure also that the Win server is activated. And a Win server is basically it takes dynamic IPs and translates them into host names so that you can connect to other computers on your network using the host name instead of trying to find the dynamic IP address. Okay, now we're going to go and click Save. And at this point, our USB support is enabled and file sharing is enabled. So what I'm going to do is pause the video and physically disconnect the USB from the computer, and I'm going to plug that flash drive into the back of the router, and it should automatically mount that drive. And I'm going to click on USB support so that we can watch that happen. So I'm going to pause the video and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, I'm back. And just to show you what I did, you can see that I have physically disconnected the flash drive from my computer and plugged it into the back of the router. And with any luck, when we click refresh, it should mount that drive. And there it is. Earlier when I was talking about the uppercase and lowercase file path, you notice where it says mount, share. We want to be careful in a moment when we go to add the file path to our DLNA media server. But before we do that, let's see how this has affected our network sharing. And what I'm going to do is open up the Windows Explorer again, and we'll browse network locations. And as you can see, there is our router. So we're going to click that, and there's the share drive that we configured earlier. And inside of the share drive, I have a media folder that will house all of my DLNA media. And inside of that folder, I have audio, images, and videos. And as you can see, I've just put a couple of fitness videos in there for this test. So now what we want to do is configure the DLNA media server to retrieve those videos. So we're going to go to Media Server. And it's very simple. Just enable the media server. Notice where it says database location. I recommend choosing custom path. So what I'll do now is enter in the file path directly to my media folder. And the reason that we want to do this, just to reiterate, is if you just leave it on RAM temporary, it will try to scan the entire drive, and that's a waste of resources and it takes much longer. So we'll leave a custom file path right there. And in our directories, our media directories, we also need to add some paths. So I'm going to copy these. And you want to select audio only and click add. I'll add another one for my videos. And I'll select video only and click add. And I have one more for images. And I'll select images only. Okay, and be sure to click add after each one. And now I'll click save. Okay, at this point, what we need to do is, there's something that you should also understand about the DLNA part of this, is each time you add media into that directory, let me go back in here and show you what I was talking about, into computer, well, excuse me, network, router, there we go. Every time you add, say, a new video, you have to rescan in order for it to be available to other devices on your network. Okay, and there's a couple of ways that you can do that. If you want to automate it, you can either, well, there's really not a great way to automate it using the Tomato firmware. You could say scan media at startup and set your router to restart, every day or every couple days. But otherwise, you'll have to click rescan on the next run and click restart now, and that will restart the whoops, I need to make sure I save. As you can see, the scan is in progress. It scanned and found the media. So what I'll do now is open up Windows Media Center and see if we can view our files using the DLNA media server. Okay, in pictures and videos, I'm going to choose video library. And there's our ASUS router. And the reason that that is named ASUS is because I'll click back over here and show you under basic identification, that's the name of the router. So if you wanted something else to show up there, you could change that. Okay. So let's click. You also want to make sure you're in the shared tab. And I'm going to click ASUS. And there are my two videos. And it may take a few moments for, once you do this, for the videos to be available. So let's just see if we can get one of the videos to play. And there we have it. We have our media, which can be played anywhere on our network from just about any device. All right, so that worked. DLNA is set up, and you should be able to receive this media from a tablet or Windows Media Center or any DLNA compliant device especially. So I'm going to close this out. And again, anytime you want to add new media into your folder here, if you wanted to add another video, a video into your videos folder, you just want to make sure that you log back into the router and click rescan on the next run and click restart now, and that will rescan and update the database. So that is how you establish network and file sharing on your computer and configure a DLNA media server. Thanks for watching.